Israeli troops gather at the border with Gaza as Defense Minister says the soldiers will see the inside of the Palestinian enclave.
Concerns aid for Israel's war in Gaza will threaten financial support for Ukraine.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant visit troops near the border with Gaza ahead of an expected ground operation into the densely packed Palestinian enclave. But house-to-house urban fighting could drastically raise Gaza's death toll, as at least 3,785 Palestinians have already been killed in Israeli airstrikes, and millions are urgently waiting for much-needed aid such as water, food, medicine and fuel.
There is no contradiction in standing in solidarity with Israel and acting on the humanitarian needs of Palestinians.
As I said in Israel, as hard as it is, we cannot give up on peace. We cannot give up on a two-state solution. Israel and Palestinians equally deserve to live in safety, dignity, and peace.
An American cargo plane carrying armoured vehicles landed in Tel Aviv on Thursday, as US President Joe Biden said he would ask Congress for unprecedented aid for Israel. Meanwhile, US intelligence has reported that the explosion at the Al-Hali Arab Hospital killed between 100 to 300 people, whilst the Palestinian officials have said that at least 471 people were killed. Lines of trucks carrying critical aid are waiting on the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing with the Gaza Strip. More than 1 million Palestinians, about half of Gaza's population, have been displaced as Israel continues to pound the enclave with airstrikes, levelling entire city blocks. Gaza's hospitals are struggling to treat more than 12,500 people injured as medical supplies, food, water and fuel run out.
I am in Egypt to witness UN preparations to be able to deliver massive support to the people of Gaza. In these life-saving efforts, the El Arish airport and the Rafah crossing are not only critical, they are our only hope. They are the lifelines to the people of Gaza.
Israel agreed to allow the aid into Gaza after US President Joe Biden visited the country, but stressed there were conditions.
Repeat the question about Lebanon.
The Israelis have very serious concerns about the diversion of humanitarian assistance. They're worried that assistance that goes in will be diverted to Hamas. We are working out an agreement to ensure that any deliveries can be handled appropriately.
The deal struck between the US, Israel and Egypt will allow only 20 trucks into the Gaza Strip on Friday. But the WHO Emergencies Director has said that is not enough to deal with the looming humanitarian catastrophe and has called for aid to be delivered into the area every day. The blast at Al-Hali Arab Hospital in Gaza and the hundreds killed have caused a shockwave in public opinion in the region. Words such as massacre and devastation are often used. But who was to blame? Euronews went to assess reactions in the Jewish and Arab communities in Jerusalem. Talia has lost family members in last week's Hamas attack. She blames the militants for starting this wave of violence, but not all Palestinians.
I like Arab. I don't have something with Arab. I work with Arab. We are joking. We have everything is good. Why to be like this? Why?
The presence of the military has become more common as Israel's call-up of reservists continues. Yosef often demonstrates against the government alongside Palestinian peace activists. He says Hamas must be destroyed for any hope of peace and says militants in Gaza are responsible for the tragic explosion.
It's definitely not our bomb. It was an accident from the jihad. And yes, today we showed it to the whole world that it's not our bomb. They put human being as a protect for them. And they don't care.
Among the Arab communities in East Jerusalem, most people were reluctant to appear on camera, fearing harassment from the police from what they could say. But one man did agree to give his opinion anonymously.
You could easily tell Israelis and Americans are right behind. They're not interested in Gaza anymore and its people.
I want to send message for all over the world. Pray for God. صلوا لله. صلوا لله عشان ينجينا ويحمينا ويحمي أولادكم ويحمي أبنائكم. دخيل الله صلوا لله.
Everybody here is in shock. Now they feel this is a new escalation in the conflict, and more than ever, people fear that this could turn into a regional conflict. We're yet to see what's going to happen in the north of Israel, near the border with Lebanon. I'm Valerie Goria in Jerusalem for Euronews.
With world leaders watching the Israel-Hamas conflict, there's concern the West will lose focus on its promise of unwavering support for Ukraine. The US has contributed more than 43 billion euros in military aid to Kiev to defend against Russian attacks. Some analysts say Russia will take advantage of what's transpiring in Gaza.
Russia has a lot to gain from it. The US will be a little bit more distracted. There is a little bit of fatigue both in Europe and with the US in terms of giving aid to Ukraine. We saw that there was already some withholding of aid from Warsaw. And if you look at the US, the Republicans, particularly the right-wing Republicans, they don't want to continue aiding Ukraine.
The future of America's support for Ukraine will likely hinge on the outcome of its 2024 presidential election.
The world can't really afford to allow the Russians to win. If we stop with Ukraine, who knows what will happen next? I mean, Russia has been very clear that they want to expand their sphere of influence. They have had a history of invading other countries, particularly when Putin's approval rating isn't particularly good. I think given how close Russia is to Europe's doorsteps and there should be genuine fear of Russia continuing to infringe on the European countries, whether it be indirectly or directly.
NATO diplomats meeting in Budapest raised security concerns over what they say is a deepening relationship between Russia and Hungary.
The European Parliament has awarded the Sakharov Prize to Mahsa Amini, the young Kurdish Iranian who died last year after being arrested for allegedly violating Iran's mandatory headscarf law. The prize was also awarded to the social movement that was sparked by Amini's death, Women, Life, Freedom. The Sakharov Prize for Freedom and Conscience is the highest tribute paid by the EU in the field of human rights. The award recognises the work and bravery of tens of thousands of Iranian women who took to the streets for months to protest Amini's death in defiance of the Iranian regime. The protests spread quickly throughout the country and only ended after a bloody repression that left more than 500 dead and some 22,000 detained. Last year's prize was awarded to the people of Ukraine for their resistance to Russia's invasion and defiance in the ongoing war.
EU interior ministers discussed the lessons the bloc should learn after 2 terrorist attacks hit Europe in just 1 week. Shortly after the Hamas attacks in Israel, a teacher was killed in the French city of Arras, and on Monday a suspected extremist shot 2 Swedish football fans dead in Brussels. The perpetrator, Abdesalam Lassoued, allegedly used loopholes in the European asylum system and managed to stay off the grid, despite being well known to authorities.
The guy who was then committing the crimes, the terror crimes in Belgium on Monday night, he was deported from Sweden in 2010 as a Dublin case. And since then he obviously has been able to show up in different countries in the Union. So that also underscores, I think, that the Dublin system, the border control, efficient return systems, sharing information between our member countries.
Ministers also discussed the need to fight online radicalisation, which played a role in both recent attacks. They pledged more cooperation, including information exchange between member states, and called for effective checks at external borders.
We have done a lot. So already this year we've seen an increase with 20% of returnees. So we are actually effectively returning more people today. But still more needs to be done. And specifically for me, it's important that those individuals that could be a security threat to our citizens, to our union, has to be returned forcefully, immediately.
Due to the terrorist threat, Italy and Slovenia have announced they will introduce checks on their land borders. This adds to the numerous exemptions to the Schengen Agreement in Europe. Despite this, the Spanish presidency of the Council of the EU says the bloc could give Romania and Bulgaria the green light to join the Schengen area in December.
The European Commission is ramping up pressure on social media platforms to crack down on what it considers violent content, false information and hate speech. It's launched an investigation into Meta and TikTok, asking them to explain what they're doing to comply with new digital rules. It follows a spike in posts related to the Israel-Hamas war in breach of the EU Digital Services Act. The request is the first step in a procedure that could result in costly penalties if the platforms fail to comply. The new rules took effect in August. They require big tech companies to stop a wide range of illegal content from flourishing on their platforms. Brussels sent its first formal request to Elon Musk's social media site X last week. The billionaire is said to be considering removing the app's availability in the EU or blocking users from accessing it.